This one, I think, is like probably like the number one buzzword.
You my
Number
opinion.
one, narcissist.
Ooh.
If you've been on the internet lately, chances are you've heard the words like gaslighting, attachment style, trauma bond, and soft life being thrown around like confetti. And here's the thing, not all of these terms are being used correctly, and some we would love to never hear again. I'm Beverley Andre, licensed marriage and family therapist, and joining me is the beautiful Bree, who is also a licensed marriage and family therapist. And today we are diving into the trending words in the mental health and relationship space. We'll be rating them, breaking them down, and letting you know which ones are helpful and which ones need to be retired immediately. Let's get into it.
Our rating system is about how effective do we think the concept applies to what's actually going on for people. So if we say rage bait, right, then how much is what's actually happening usually rage bait? If we give it 2, it means this thing is being used very poorly. People are not applying it in the right situations. If we like how it's being used and it's accurate, we're giving it a high rating. Okay, gentle parenting. You think it's being used perfectly?
Don't judge me.
Okay, yes. Gentle parenting, I give it a 3.
I give it a two because I think people confuse gentle parenting with permissive parenting. It's just like, oh, y'all really think that people are just letting their kids do anything under the sun. And that's not what it really is.
I gave it a 3 because I think that not only is it misquoted for
Mhm.
just a lack of boundaries, being permissive, I also think that there are people who label themselves as gentle parents when really they're just being permissive with a lack of
Absolutely.
boundaries. So I think like the term is being misassigned, and I think that the assignment is not being done properly. So I don't
Absolutely. It's a
think
misnomer. Like
yes, for all around a 3 on the index of what needs to be happening.
the next word is trigger warning. One, two.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're both going low on this one. We're both going
We're
low
going
on
low.
the trigger
Going
warning.
low. Why you
So
two?
I gave it a 2 because I think that trigger warnings are not nearly as effective as people believe. I don't think that they really assist in trauma recovery. Triggers are so personal that essentially needing trigger warnings and trying to make them like a everyday part of our lexicon, it just will break up the way kind of natural communication works. So I really rather pay attention to skill development and being able to internally regulate rather than depending on external warnings to actually brace yourself, from what is going to trigger you. So I'm not a huge fan of the term. I also think that people overuse the word trigger in general.
Mhm.
I think people misuse them, people misquote them, people overdemand them, and it's just a lack of clarity of like what's supposed to be happening.
The reason why I hear you and I completely agree. And I did zero because I feel that it is impossible to believe that you can live a life where you will know to expect X, Y, and Z. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Especially like I see it with like my couples, and just like I just need a trigger warning. Some people are just living their life. They are not overthinking every single action that they take for themselves. So how can they do that for you? I think it's just an unfair and unrealistic expectations
Yeah.
that people have with the people that they want to be in relationship with.
All right. Avoidant attachment.
I can't wait to see what she wrote with this.
Ready?
Yes.
All right. Oh,
Okay,
yay!
okay, okay. So we're in alignment. I personally think there's so much power in knowing attachment styles. This attachment theory, I think, is so powerful. I do think that people overuse it at times when it comes to things that make them uncomfortable or people that make them uncomfortable or topics. It is good for people to know about this. But like the more information that you have, the more that things can make sense and you can apply changes in order to move towards secure attachment. But sometimes people are just like, oh, you just an avoidant personality, and they have weaponized the term and the title instead of using that as information on their journey of trying to figure out secure attachment.
Absolutely. I gave it a 6 for similar reasons. I think attachment working theory is really powerful. It's good to be aware of kind of where you lie, right, in the different styles. But I think that the reason why I can't give it a 10 is because sometimes people act like it's a stationary way
Yeah,
of being that they're just trapped inside of and they can't do anything, and
yeah,
everyone
it's a
can work
box.
around their attachment style versus
Yeah.
this information to be aware of about how to do more healing work to move closer to secure attachment, to have deeper understanding of what may be happening in relationships. I also think it's tricky because we use the word so much. Sometimes people misassign avoidant attachment, particularly when it's just disinterest. When somebody tells me immediately that a person is avoidant, I'm like, it's not always an avoidant attachment. Sometimes it's that a person is disinterested, which can feel like avoidant.
Next, high value woman. I'm ready.
Okay, what you gave? We're very close in alignment. Why did you give it a 0?
I give it a 0 because what I have seen so far in terms of the conversation around what makes a high value woman, the men she entertains, how much money's in her bank account, her appearances, all of these things, right? In terms of relationship, for me, do those things matter to a degree? Absolutely. But I think it's so materialistic and surface that it doesn't allow you to genuinely understand what is valuable about this woman.
Mhm.
I just want more substance. You know what I mean? And I don't get anything out of that. You always find somebody that looks better than you, who has more money than you, who can pull whoever under the sun. And so if that is what you think makes you top tier above all the rest of the women in this world, it's just so surface to me. It feels transactional. Like I can help you by looking like X, Y, and Z, having this amount of money, or I personally would just require more. I feel like I'm a high value woman, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't define myself according to those things.
I think we have similar feelings. I think because I'm also a dating coach, and this word tends to come up a lot in dating. And I realize what people want is a way to kind of verbalize what is essentially the dating market, the dating marketplace, and what seems to be your market value for using those types of terms.
Yeah.
And we do need language for things. So like I won't give it a 0 just because I know that there is some usage for it. Sometimes when I get people and they're like, I'm a high value woman, and I'm like, let's dig into that, right? Not because of status, job, things, but I think also what are your characteristics? Are you a kind person? Are you a thoughtful person? Are you a self-reflective person who works on themselves? Are you aware of your attachment style? Like I think some of those things, that's why I can't give it a high number because, like you, I think it's overassigned on a lot of superficial markers. But I think when we integrate more of the necessary components of like trying to establish what am I presenting like when I'm trying to find someone, then I think there can be a little bit of value there. But I'm with you in that it's low because
Low.
the manosphere weaponizes the term. I think a lot of women, have a misfocus of what the term is about. So it is a lot of confusion there. So
Yeah,
that's why it's low on my list.
I understand.
All right. Let's see. Our next one, following right up under the high value woman, is alpha male.
You need to rewrite a number for that one.
Girl. All right. What do we have? I had to rewrite a number. Give it a zero. Give it a zero. Give it a zero.
I have always said, Brie, when I hear people talk about feminine energy and how you need to allow him to be a man and all of that, I'm like, you don't allow a man to be anything. A man knows who he is. A man
Mm.
does not need your permission to be a man. You give yourself permission to experience said man. But a man who knows who he is does not have to keep saying, I'm a man. That's like saying luxury or lux experience. Luxury does not scream, I am luxurious. It just is. A man who is a man just is. You don't need no qualifier.
I give it a zero because I think the term is a little archaic. I think some of what's tied to alpha male is a little bit toxic, right?
Misogynist.
Misogynistic, a little toxic. I also think it's just a part of a system of like dominators and
Right.
non-dominators. And that I'm like,
Oppression of others.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of alpha male as a term. I would rather a person say like, I'm a natural leader. Something like that. Also, the term has just been really co-opted by a lot of very toxic spaces.
The podcast
Um,
rules.
yeah. So for me, I give it a zero. It's not something that I'm a fan of. It's also not something I encourage my daters to chase after. So it's a zero on both accords.
Mhm. This
Right.
one is a hot topic. The next word is ethical non-monogamy. You ready?
All right.
Go ahead. Why
So
why you gave it a three?
I gave it a three because I think ethical non-monogamy, it's a concept that works for some people. I think overwhelmingly people are the rule and not the exception, in which for the rule is that it is highly misappropriated, um, very confusing, and is prone to some power dynamics oftentimes that are unfair for one person in the relationship or multiple people in the relationship, and one person greatly benefits from ethical monogamy.
Who tends to be
So
the person?
who tends to be the person is usually a man who is uh having having lots of power dynamic over a harem of women.
Mm.
And it tends to be a lot of confusion, manipulation, unclear boundaries. It winds up not being that ethical. Informed non-monogamy is not the same as ethical non-monogamy. So, like, you can have people are informed that we're not being monogamous, but actually, there's quite a lot of harm happening, a lot of confusion, a lot of bad boundaries, lack of clarification, power dynamics, one way. So that's why I go low on my list. However, for like sometimes with queer couples or like I have different couples where the structure of non-monogamy serves them. People are clear, people have done readings, they've done the books, they've done the work, they talk about the things at the sessions, and it seems to be appropriate for certain people's preference, lifestyle, right? People are clear, not power dynamic stuff going on. But a lot of times it is just informed chaos.
I gave it a one because based off of recent cultural conversation around ethical non-monogamy. I think that was it Amarian who said that men are supposed to spread their seed. By nature, we are not monogamous creatures, so to say. And I gave it a one because it's overused to it's overused and it's applied in circumstances where people just choose not to have discipline. You get what I'm saying? So to say that, oh, we are not monogamous by nature. So if we were to go down that route, right, and just say, okay, shoot, fine, we are innately selfish people, right? But how many areas in our lives do we actually practice discipline, where we actually decide, where we make a decision? No, we're going to do this. We're going to apply our efforts here. There's never been the couples that people look to,
Mhm.
right? The Actually, I'm not even go there because I'm not dropping no names because I don't know nobody's marriage. I don't know nobody's relationship. I'm just gonna stop it as based off of recent conversations,
Mhm.
cultural conversations. It has been used to essentially permit non-disciplined behavior. Like there
Yeah.
are plenty of people, plenty of couples who decide to live a monogamous lifestyle.
I'm gonna agree with you that I think immediately jumping to ethical non-monogamy sometimes is like a umbrella that can hide a lot of unhealed
Ooh,
trauma and need
yeah.
for work, right? So I'm not a fan of people just co-opting the term and then just getting out there and doing kind of whatever they want. I think the whole part of the word ethical means with deep care and consideration, right? Not just for yourself, but for others. And I also don't like when people use terms and then they get philosophical about the nature of all men, of all women,
It
to
becomes like a blanket.
yeah, to justify something which is a minority thing. I mean, we can look out in nature and see that there are monogamous animals. There are also non-monogamous animals, right?
Mhm.
That's why I'm always like, everything doesn't work for everybody, but don't sit here and theorize that the reason this is because this is just what the nature is. Like, if you had the nature of men figured out, why aren't you doing better? You know,
Ooh, woo-hoo, we know better. You do.
nobody fully has that figured out.
We know better. You do better. Okay. You ready for the next one?
Yes. Safe space. All right.
Ready?
Yep. We're always like within two. We're always in two. Why do you say two?
Okay. Based off of how people are using safe space, it's as if my safety is literally within that person or institution or physical space, as
Mhm.
opposed to your safe space is really you. It's
Hmm.
it's like it's really the sense of safety is like, do I trust myself to be able to share these words, to share my thoughts, my emotions with this person? And that person um gets to decide, do they want to share in that or do they want to just back off, right? And
Mhm.
so I think you can develop an environment within the relationship where talking about our feelings and all of that brings on a sense of safety. But when just like, oh, I need a safe space and this is just not a safe space, is it not safe or are you uncomfortable? Or is this person not trustworthy?
Mhm. Mhm.
I think just kind of redefining safe space is really necessary because it's just like you might just be avoiding what you got going on and you projecting outward.
Hmm. I love everything that you just said. Snaps, snaps, snaps. Okay. So I gave it a 4 because again, I'm like, terms have meaning and like I understand why people want to use it, but I gave it a 4. I gave it a low score because I think that this word is also weaponized when you're actually not safe. And like when people are at work and they're like, HR is like, you guys can share. It's a safe space. It's not this. It's not. HR works for the company. They don't work for you.
HR protects the company. If y'all don't get nothing else from this,
They work
HR does not have your back.
don't work for you, right? But they try to lure people into dropping their defenses by saying things like this is a safe space where you can share without backlash and all those things. But overwhelmingly to me, when people announce that it is a safe space, it probably is it really a safe space, because a lot of times safety is a sense of feeling that we have. And I think the challenge is just like you said, safety is something that you really kind of create within yourself. If
Yeah.
I am practicing safety and you make me feel safe, I still get to judge whether or not I want to test our relationship out with whatever disclosure that I'm going to have. That's
Yeah.
up to me to hold that boundary as to whether or not I even want my information out there, if I want to give you the opportunity to be that intimate. I think that's more powerful than someone just announcing, doesn't it feel safe? I seem calm, but really, like, how long
Yeah.
have you known the person?
It is a decision within you, and you can allow yourself to experience somebody and they can allow themselves to participate in this relationship with you. But if you don't feel safe nowhere, you're not going to feel safe with anybody. Okay.
And guess what? There are certainly people that will make you feel very unsafe. And what I say to that is listen to your gut, listen to your body, pack it on up, and then learn how to create that safety within yourself and commune with other people who reflect those safe things back to you. Right. And then you're probably actually going to feel safe. So I don't love the term too much. I tend to think that safe spaces are not out there in the public and not out there with a lot of mixed crowds and whatnot. And more of an internal thing, but I also recognize the need for the term.
Absolutely. All right. This one I think is like probably like the number one buzzword. Number one, narcissist.
Ooh.
Narcissist. Yeah. Mm. I think my scoring might surprise you.
Ready? All right.
I went between two numbers.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So why did you give it a 5?
I gave it a 5 because I feel like it's half and half. So narcissism, every time we learn a term or we learn about a clinical diagnosis, we put our focus on it. What happens is a resurgence of everybody using the word, not just because, oh, now everybody has it. Sometimes it's a label that now everyone understands and experience. And so sometimes the label narcissist is being used because people are finally literally recognizing, oh, this collection of symptoms is narcissist. So we're hearing about it more. Narcissists are out there. Many people don't have narcissistic personality disorder, but we have slivers of different self-centered, self-centric, right? Versions of ourselves that may be displayed in relationships. So sometimes we're experiencing some of the symptoms of narcissism without a person being a narcissist.
Yeah.
However, we do have major uh major big giant examples of raging narcissism. And narcissists love to be in front of the microphone. So we're being inundated constantly with narcissism. And so I think it's why it's on the tip of everybody's tongue. And if you've actually experienced like a relationship with a narcissist or narcissistic abuse, then having the language to know that this is a narcissist is deeply powerful. And doing the work to recover from a narcissist's chaos in your life is deeply powerful. So I never want to gaslight people if I never want to like be dismissive if you've actually experienced a narcissist, which is why I give it a 5, because I feel like about every 1 in 2 it seems to be what it is. But 50% is a lot of people who have
Yeah.
experienced a relationship with a narcissist. They're out here, a lot of times they're empowered, people bosses, and narcissists don't maintain relationships well. So guess what that means? That means that they run the circuit in relationships, which means they're not married and stable, so you never experience them. They be out there on the market recycling through people every whatever their kind of break pattern is. So it's
Yeah.
like narcissists going to hit a lot of people up. So I
Or
give it,
maybe sometimes married and still.
yes, very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, narcissist
Yeah.
could absolutely be attached to a narcissist who is
Yeah.
feeding off of you for a very long time. But I also know, like, in terms of, because I'm a dating coach, right? That's these narcissists who can't maintain a relationship, they have a higher turnover rate. So they're creating chaos for a lot of people.
Yeah. So a lot of people are filling up that 50%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I agree with the five. Just because I think it's important for people to be able to have a label for their experiences. I mean, part of narcissism is I'm going to gaslight you so that you're thinking that this isn't a big deal, or you think that you're misremembering what actually happened or how bad things really are or were. And so when you have like, oh, there's this diagnosis and this is the experience of being with someone who has narcissism, or having a parent who's a narcissist, is so empowering to be able to be like, oh, I was being gaslit. What I felt was actually true. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you. This gets this validates me. Where that gets skewed, because obviously anything that, goes out there for the good, there's, there's negative and positive consequences with everything that come out there. I think now people have just pathologized
Yes.
the traits. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, well, if you're gaslighting me, and it's just like, are they gaslighting you, or do they just have another perspective and you're being stubborn and you don't want to incorporate their perspective? So it's a fine line,
Yeah.
because once again, the diagnosis has a series of symptoms and things to be able to look at: intensity, frequency, longevity.
Effectiveness of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so many things that factors into that diagnosis. So just like you, I'm not going to undermine anybody else's experiences, but I think that we really we have to be, what's the word? We have to be very mindful
Mhm.
that we're not using this and weaponizing it. We have
Yes.
to be responsible with the word,
Absolutely.
title, the diagnosis. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. They're narcissists because they only think about themselves. I'm like, they could just be selfish.
Selfish. They may have an ego issue.
Right? They could just be selfish with you because they are not that invested in you. Sometimes they're narcissists, but sometimes they're not. So I love that we both gave it a 5. So our next one is red flags. Red flags. All right. Are we ready? Okay. Okay. Why'd you give it a 2?
Because people will still see him and be like, I'm thinking about Love is Blind when AD was like, I see red flags and I paint my nails to match. Honestly and truly, we're talking about red flags and it's overused, and y'all not paying attention to the red flags.
You know what? I may have to change my number because I did 5 because I'm like, red flags are absolutely 100% real. But I was like,
They're real.
they're totally real. Um, but I'm like, I give it a 5 because for every flag, people ignore it. So it's like a 1 and a 2. So I came to kind of the same conclusion of like, it depends. Sometimes people see the red flag and they run, but half the time, literally half the time, people see the red flag, say it's a red flag,
That
and
thing is just
still
waving,
continue down the path. So
waving.
I'm like, maybe we need to come up with a better term because y'all not
No,
responding no more.
the flag is waving and they're just waving back.
Y'all think red flags is cute.
Right.
I'm like, red is
Right.
my color. It's the color of love.
Oh, get my nails.
Yeah, exactly. Y'all like, come on. I love red. It's a power color. So that's why I'm
Oh,
like,
come on.
it's accurate, but it seems to be very ineffective in terms
Ineffective.
mislabeling. I think sometimes people label something as a red flag when they don't have an understanding of maybe a concept or a trait, or really it's just like a pet peeve or people like being over picky. But I tend to, the reason why I gave it the 5 was because I'm like, half the time people don't listen to it. So I'm
The
gonna go right in
ick,
the middle.
right? The ick. Or there's some really great qualities about a person that because you're not used to it, it's a red
Come
flag.
on.
Oh, he opens
Uh,
my door. Oh, he's nice to me. Oh, she's not cursing me out every single moment. Those are red flags because it's unfamiliar.
yep,
Therefore, you think it's a red flag when it's
yep.
actually, or boom, boom. Here's one. Oh, I don't feel like we have a spark. I had a spark with everybody else, but there's no spark with them. That's a red flag. No,
You had a
you had
trauma check
anxiety.
in your system from
You had
everybody else.
anxiety. You were hyper vigilant.
Right. You were anxious. You were triggered. You were unsettled. And that feels very like chemistry. I know. Sometimes people are like, it's a red flag. They're just seem a little boring. It's like,
Yeah,
sometimes boring is because it's unfamiliar to your nervous system. Safety may feel boring to you if you're always used to living on the edge.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
it can be misassigned, but also a lot of times people don't even pay attention to the flags. So I'm like, we gotta come up with a new term.
Right. All right. So love languages. Ready?
Mhm.
Go. Oh, oh, this is our biggest discrepancy.
Okay, this is a big discrepancy.
Come on.
Tell
Okay,
me
why
why you gave it a three.
give it three? I think it's overused, and I think that people have used it to box themselves and their partners in, coming from like the relationship side of it.
Mhm.
The concept of love language is not like, oh, I'm quality time. That's all that I need.
Yeah.
It is not. The
Hmm.
concept of love language, if you really want to understand it, I mean, was it Dr. Gary Chapman, I believe? Like, there's certain displays of love that hits home for certain people more than others, but it doesn't mean that it's an either or, it's a both and.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I need all the things, gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, all of that creates like the collective experience of love
Hmm.
towards someone. But I think that the way that people use it, the way that they understand it is overused, it's not understood, and it has made certain people a little resistant to meeting their partner's needs and
Hmm.
also a little selfish, like, and a little like a sprinkle of laziness or maybe complacency.
Oh yeah, that's a good.
Complacency, you think if I just do this because that's your love language, then I'm good, versus no, like that's your baseline.
Hmm.
But so that's where I'm at.
Okay. So I gave it a very high score. And I think it's because I do so much focused dating and relationship work. I love to use it for couples. I think understanding the love language is really powerful, particularly when people keep reporting that they feel underloved or like, I don't know, I'm just not feeling connected. Like going back to knowing what your partner's love language is or their primary love languages, right? And that's what, like you, I can't give it a 10 because people misunderstand it. Sometimes people mislabel it. Sometimes people don't reassess because your love language can change over time. A lot of times it's one thing. See, when you had them kids, baby, that acts of service go way up. So I always talk to people about that. Like reassess.
And
Okay.
physical touch tends to go down,
Yeah, exactly.
especially
So
with moms being touched out.
overstimulated, right? So I think people like you tend to think of it as like this is what it is and this is what I need, and if you don't give it to me, then you don't love me.
Yeah,
Versus understanding it's a good piece of information about how do I give high octane gasoline to my partner. So I love it as information about how you should be loving your partner, not necessarily a weapon for you to be, you know, thinking of like how I need my love all the time. That's where things get off track. If both people are trying to meet the other person's need in
yeah.
their primary love language, but also filling out the other ones, you need supplemental. Okay, we are able to speak all five.
Come on.
It then I think this is how we get to higher
And
relationships.
not just defaulting to what primary registers to you. That's, oh, child, Chile.
We're going into rapid fire mode. That means that we are going to be giving our number and then we're going to be giving real concise why we feel that way. Okay?
Doing the work.
Ah!
Yeah, because some of us just ain't.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ain't.
No, we have the exact same reaction. Doing the work, you should be, but are you? And
Yeah.
some of us
That's
are a
okay.
little bit too concerned with looking over at the other person's paperwork to see if they're doing the work. So I give it a 3 too, because I feel like people really not out here doing the work for real, for real.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
All right. Soft life. Okay. Ready? All right. So for me, I gave it a 3 because I think sometimes soft life can be an aspirational aesthetic rather than a real value that people are really committed to. To me, it's a little bit too tied up into materialism and some extent, unrealisticness about what life will actually be like. So I think the word is really misused and it's very aspirational and unfortunately used to kind of pump some harmful aspirations on people versus what it could be.
Protecting my peace.
All right. You need to rewrite. I'm just like, I'm sorry, you used this number.
Protecting my peace can sometimes be avoidant behavior as opposed to boundaries and governing laws. Like, how do you want to govern your life? What are the laws that you have in place when there's chaos, when there's anything like that? How do you govern yourself? You know what I mean? As opposed to, I'm protecting my peace. I'm not going to pick up your phone call. That's avoidant behavior, babes.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah. Yeah. So I gave it a low score because I think it's so often misquoted for not wanting being conflict avoidant, not wanting to set appropriate boundaries. I think a lot of times it's people running away from things, improperly disengaging from things. Right?
Ghosting.
Yes, exact ghosting versus actually being peaceful and handling your business with good boundaries and with care. So I'm not a fan of it. Most of the time when people are using it, it's really covering other behaviors that need to be explored. This next one is feminine energy. All right, ready?
Go.
Okay. We're always like two within each other. Why'd you give it
Um,
an 8?
Feminine energy because I think, we could all be vulnerable, a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more soft, a little bit more receptive to being nurtured and taken care of, both men and women. I think I put it as an 8 because I think just like soft life, it can skew into the aesthetics and the behavior. But overall, I think it's an 8. If you want more thoughts, please go and look on the Tamron Hall show. So I talked about it.
Yeah. Love it. Love the plug. Um, yeah, I love feminine energy. I do whole workshops and conferences on feminine energy. I think it's a wonderful concept. We need more of it. We need more of it in this country. We need more of it in our society. We need more of it on a personal level, micro, macro level, all of those things. It's wonderful. But I think it is very misunderstood. I think it can be at the surface level. I think sometimes it is a little wrapped up too much in like gender heteronormative stuff and not necessarily the actual kind of energy principle concept the way that it's best used. So I give it a 6 because I'm like it's a little bit, I don't think people have a deep enough understanding of it.
Mhm.
Healing it and using it for like its very healing natures. But I love it. I give it a 10 for how much I love it, but I give it a 6.
Come on, love. Like,
I give it a 6 for how much I think is kind of overused and not used properly.
so next one is emotionally unavailable. Okay, ready? My little 6. Yeah.
Okay. I said emotionally unavailable because I think and again, I think I have a skewed perspective as a dating coach. There are a ton of emotionally unavailable people. It doesn't mean they're emotionally unavailable to everyone, but they are emotionally unavailable to you. So and that's why I give it a 5 because people use the people use the term like it is a diagnosis, like it is
Yeah.
a fixed characteristic about a person rather than something that you experience in
Yeah.
relationship to someone else.
Yeah. It's like when people say he's a horrible partner, but a wonderful father.
Right, exactly, exactly. Emotionally available for the children, not for
Not you.
commitment and romantic relationship. Just like I said, I'm emotionally unavailable for Sally Mae and Navient, okay,
Yeah.
with their constant stressors, but I am emotionally available for all the other things and conversations.
Because sometimes it's a desire issue and sometimes it's a skill set, a lack of skill set.
Hmm. Hmm.
Mhm,
That
mhm, mhm, mhm.
that part. So we're here.
Okay.
Boundaries. Why you give it a 5?
We use them, we talk about it, but we don't create them, we don't respect them, we don't stick by them. It's overused. People use it as walls, as opposed to I have a gate and I can open up the gate and
Hmm.
let people in, and then those who don't respect it, I can let you out.
Hmm.
Or using boundaries walls as opposed to gates.
Yes. I gave it, so I love boundary work. I think we need more healthy boundaries. But a lot of times what's happening is people, just like you said, have super rigid boundaries. They have a lack of boundaries. You're just out here cutting off, acting up, cutting up, cutting out, cursing out.
It's like a barber shop. I'm cutting off. I'm cutting.
Right, cursing out. And it's like, those are boundaries, actually.
Respect my boundaries. And
Yeah, like,
honestly,
yeah.
truly, what people fail to understand is boundaries are not the other person's changed behaviors. Boundaries is what you choose to allow to affect you, whether it's a person, whether it's a space, like a relationship, and no matter what it is. Because once you talk about a boundary and someone doesn't comply, the real boundary is what you choose to do afterward.
Come on. Come on. So see, again, this is why I give it a 6. Also, sometimes it's if a person doesn't have a healthy understanding of what's even healthy in a relationship, then they're going to come with the boundaries that are actually inappropriate. Because I
That
think people are like, it's my boundary that I get to check your phone every day. It's like, wait, what? No, like people use the be misusing the word. So I cannot give it a really great score, even though I love the concept. And when you get healthy boundaries down and how it's not about controlling other people, but it's about, controlling what has access to you, what you allow to maintain, um,
access.
it is a game changer.
Absolutely. All right. So people, please ready?
So many people have people pleasing issues where they are intensely oriented towards people pleasing. And we find this in, especially in communities that are oppressed, right? Where you were taught not to advocate as much for yourself, that you're taught to cater to people. So I think people pleasing issues are very common. So high degree of accurate usage, but I also think that sometimes people pleasing can also be weaponized, misused. Sometimes it's definitely being mislabeled for something else. A lack of boundaries. Um, you know, so there's a high degree of misassigning the term, which is why I can't give it a good number.
Fair. I agree. I had to really just think about it. Um, I think it's super prevalent in like collective communities, like collective societies,
Mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm,
immigrant,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
first, the only where it's the community over self,
Yes, I think
it
at that
becomes,
cultural lens of like,
yeah, it becomes learned behavior. Because I'm Haitian,
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm,
like first gen, born in America, and it's just like everything that you do is not for you first or at all. It's
mm-hmm.
for the benefit of the family, it's for the benefit of your community. And so when people take those behaviors into personal relationships, like one-to-one relationships, it's hard for them to identify and communicate their needs because they ultimately want to be perceived in a certain way by their partners, by their friends, by their coworkers, their supervisors, all of that. So I put it as a 5 because it's real and I do a lot of work in this space with with my clients.
Mhm.
But I do think it's a little overused when it comes to how we talk about it sometimes. Like people pleasing behaviors is like, well, I do like doing nice things for my friends and I do care about how they feel about me. I think it's one of those, I don't care what anybody has to say about me,
Yeah.
care what everybody has to say about me. You know what I mean? Like when it's so skewed into just one direction versus you're in the middle and in the gray and looking at the both end, that's why I give it a 5.
Yeah. I have to mention, for those who saw White Lotus, I won't over spoil, but something happened in the show that was so egregious and out there. And the person's explanation for why they did it was like, well, I'm a people pleaser. And that's when I was like, now see, we are,
Yeah. Yeah.
where it's like people are
Like,
now using the term, and it's like, you need to go deeper than just people pleasing. That was beyond people pleasing.
yeah.
Our next term is inner child. What are we giving it? Yay! We're gonna give it a high score. Why'd you give it a 9?
Inner child work is real. Inner
Mhm.
child wounds are, I
Mhm.
mean, we need
Come
to
on.
talk about it so much because I think, especially when we grow up, we're so busy trying to leave our past behind, looking forward, and all of that. And I'm like, your default behavior is probably indicative to your inner child wounds,
No.
how you show up in relationships. And if you would only allow yourself to pay attention to don't be another person in your life that's ignoring that has ignored
Yeah.
your inner child. Sit and have a conversation, heal, pay attention. Like I can't talk enough
Come
about it.
on.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? The work is real and it's powerful if you allow yourself to really sit and understand what you do right now in your big age is not because you want to do it, it's also indicative of some things from way back then that you
Yeah.
really don't pay attention to.
Yeah. Totally agree. I gave it a high score because the work is powerful, it's transformational, it's deep, and more people need to do it. And I think when people actually are aware of their inner child wounds, their inner child longings, what their inner child needs, it can be a real game changer in how you present as an adult. But I
Ah,
I, I dock some points because sometimes people are saying my inner child needs this treat, things like that, where it's like, okay. And sometimes people can infantilize themselves, just like you were saying. Um, and the term can be a little misused, but overwhelmingly, I think when people are using it, it's because they have some of that work or awareness done. And if they're doing that, I definitely highly encourage it. So we both gave a good score.
people need to also understand the moment you decide to start doing inner child work, your relationships will shift. Do
Let
not
go.
be surprised. Your marriage, your relationship with your parents, your siblings, your
Yes,
friends,
yes,
everything
yes.
will shift. Yeah. PSA. So, nervous system regulation.
Ready?
Ready?
Mm-hmm. Yay!
Okay, so why you put 6?
I almost wanted to give it a 7. So the concept of us being more understanding about where our nervous system is and how to regulate it, being mindful of what happens to the body when we think about somatic work. And I think this is like new next wave of psychology that is so powerful, wonderful work, right? But I see the term starting to be hijacked a little bit, hijacked by the non-licensed kind of
Yeah. The spiritualist.
wellness. Yeah, like the people, because it is not a diagnostic term, it is prone to being appropriated into like uh capitalistic health culture. And so I'm
Hmm.
starting to see it over there, and I'm like, "Ugh, please,
Yeah.
everything is like nurses, regular nurses, nurses. I see it all the time. So I think it's being overused. But I think the actual work and understanding is really powerful. Okay.
I'm ready.
Our next one is gaslighting. Ready?
Yeah.
Hey, we're very separate. Why a three?
I think it's just overused. I think it's overused. I think it's an important concept to
Mhm.
know and understand and see how it plays out in your life, but everybody and their mama using it just flippantly and irresponsibly. For real.
Oh Lord. Okay. I gave it a six because I actually think gaslighting is such a specific term for a process that happens. We have no other terminology for it. And when
Mhm.
we have a new terminology to understand a very specific process, it's kind of like deja vu. Like the only word to describe deja vu is deja vu. So I think that's why it's being used so much. I also think overwhelmingly that many people actually do this process, particularly the there's a lot of mansplaining. It's like mansplaining is a term we use all the time, but it's because it's the stuff been happening for a long time. And now we got a term for it. We calling that stuff
Wrong.
out all the time. So a lot of times
Wrong.
gaslighting is happening and now we just have a term for it. But I wish we had like a little bit more, like if we wanted to alternatively say don't mansplain something to me, we could say like don't talk condescending to me. Why are you belittling me? Why there's alternate words for it. What's the alternate word for gaslighting?
I
You lying
mean,
to me and trying to make me feel like I'm wrong when I'm not really wrong, and now you playing with
right.
me.
It's a phrase. You have to describe the experience as opposed to just saying gaslighting.
So that's kind of why I'm like, I think the term is being used so much because people are now able to condense a process that happens a lot down. I think there's a lot of people out there gaslighting people because there's a lot of people who don't like to take accountability. And instead of being
That,
accountable, they want to be defensive and flip the script on you.
yeah, yeah.
So, you know,
Saying
that's
the innocent, who, me?
I
Yeah.
think that process is happening a hell of a lot. So I actually think people are using it very frequently, but sometimes people are, and that's why I couldn't give it the 10. People do be misusing it when it's like, are they gaslighting you, or is it just like you all have two different perspectives? And sometimes people are mutually not taking accountability. So then
Yeah.
they're throwing out these terms improperly.
Yeah. Absolutely. All
Yeah.
right. So next we have Let Them. Hot buzz word recently with the drop of the book by Mel Robbins.
Okay. Ready?
Ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We see each other.
Why do you give it a zero? I'm not even mad at your zero.
It's not new. It's, I think, okay. I think sometimes people choose to put up a front that they're just so unaffected by everything. And it's just like, well, why would you let that bother you? It's like, well, it bothers me. You know what I mean? Like, things get to bother people.
Yes, they do.
Behaviors get to bother people. Yes, you may not be able to change the situation, you may not be able to change the person, but you will, of course, have an emotional response to it. So, have I read the book? I have not.
Mhm.
I will say that, right? But based off the commentary around the concept of let them, it's just like we're not an island entirety of itself. That's Nietzsche, not me. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
you will be impacted. That's part of being alive on this earth. You are impacted by the next human who's around you. It may be minute, but there's still an influence.
Yeah. So like I didn't give it a zero because I know for some people the kind of rehashed concept of stoicism, right? It's very life changing, it's very pivotal. Um Also for some people having a nice little words matter, like sometimes a short phrase to give your marching orders to let go, to release, to have serenity, to have peace, to disengage. There's so many different terms that we can say besides let them, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes the marching order really helps people. So I'm like, I can't 100% dismiss it. However, I feel that, like you, it can be dismissive
Yeah.
of of times where no, I can't just let them. I also think it's something that privileged privileged statuses can co-opt a little bit easier, integrate a little bit easier because it's kind of like, oh,
Woo!
if somebody come in your house and bop you upside your head, just let them. Am I gonna just let them? Maybe I should do something, you know. And
You
also
talking
I'm
about the
entitled.
privilege. You ain't
I'm
wrong.
entitled to have feelings about it. Just like you say, things affect people and people are entitled
Yeah.
to have feelings about it. We shouldn't let those feelings dominate ourselves and leave us stuck on a page forever, right? But we absolutely do get to have feelings about it, and we don't always have to let people just do things. We can speak up and we can choose, make choices based off of what you are doing. So I think the concept, try to be short and sweet and cute, but isn't not giving enough, uh, not giving enough nuance, and also it's kind of like a rehash concept. So,
I think I'll just stick to who is we.
right?
All right. Go ahead, friend. You go
All
like that.
right. This next one, my fill in the blank is my therapist, who is not a therapist, hairdresser, best friend, dog,
Barber.
barber.
My friend. My friend who's a therapist.
Right? Ready?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Because we're doing that. We are not doing that anymore.
Get out of here. Stop it.
No, be accountable.
Cut it
If
out. Cut it
I
out.
okay, and here's the thing: there is power in like group therapy and like being in communities and having relationships where you can support each other, and they are not a replacement for a therapist. They do
Hmm.
not have the skill set to support you in the change that you need in your life. Even if your friend is a therapist, dual relationships, we can't do that. That's not ethical.
Also, the whole point, the whole point of actual therapy is that you are getting licensed skills, insights, growth work that's moving. Your friend, your hairdresser who's sitting there for an hour is listening to you. And I appreciate that you feel listened to or heard in a different way. I even appreciate that maybe this one person has a different voice than the other people in your life that makes you feel more positive. That is not the same thing as therapy. Your hairstylist is not challenging you to growth. They're not confronting you with your parts of where you need to do the healing work, right? They're validating you, they're listening to you, and that feels great, but it is not therapy. So I also just think that it promotes nonsense and it promotes people not actually doing what needs to be done. They don't want to do the work.
Do the work. I will say this, not for nothing. There may be people, barbers, whomever, that can confront me like, okay, that may make no sense and da da da, right? But in terms of what you need to systemically change your life, they don't have the skill set. They can give you advice for that situation, but you will notice that you'll more than likely fall back to the same cycle and repeat the same things because you were not offered tools to actually create a higher level of change that you need for it to be sustainable in your life.
You're also not accountable to your hairstylist to give them an update next week on whether or not you did your part. So,
Right, right,
you know,
right.
ineffective. All right.
Okay. Ghosting, 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 ghosting. Mm. I think we might be very surprised at what we both write.
Okay.
Ready? Go.
Yes.
Why are you putting on?
Because this one, bullseye, they ghosted you. Like this one is not being misused, but this one is happening and it's happening all the time. And
Oh my God.
it's
It's an
good for us
epidemic.
to have a word for it, a nice
Epidemic.
succinct word for when it's happening. Yeah, they ghosted you. I have heard this one misused when I'm like, if they broke up with you, they didn't ghost you because they literally just never came back. That's not
See?
ghosting. That's
Mm-hmm.
called a breakup.
Break
And
up.
then it stayed broken. You're having a hard time accepting that. But a lot of times people are out here ghosting. People once again are conflict avoidant. They don't know how to properly end things. They say that they're going to protect their peace, and what they do instead is emotionally run away from a
Casper.
situation that's
Casper.
uncomfortable, and they Casper themselves.
Just fade to black
Yep,
or fade to white.
they fade away, and then people are like, "Wait, what
What happened?
happened?"
I mean, and one it's like a kind of unless there is a security safety issue concern. But if it's because I'm not going to give you my time and energy or the come on, come
Mhm,
on,
mhm. Our next one is love bombing.
ready?
Hmm. Okay, this is our
Okay.
biggest disagreement.
You know, I
Why 9?
because I think that it is something that people really need to understand when it's happening, because I think that there are so many folks who are deprived of love, deprived of affection. And when they see someone pouring into them, they're like, oh my gosh, it's like, you ain't get it for a while. You haven't been drinking water, and somebody gives you like a big gallon, right? And then they're expecting you to guzzle it. You're thinking, oh, you just want to be helpful. You know that I've been, thirsty, but you have to think about the intention behind the actions, right? Like wooing and really deciding how you feel about somebody isn't an overwhelming presence. It's not
Mhm.
something that you have to make huge life decisions about right then and there, unless there's always exceptions to the rule, right? And so I think people really need to be able to understand the difference between love bombing behavior versus wooing affection. Because some people just aren't used to affection, so when they get it, it's like, oh, you love bombing me. And it's like, no, I just brought you flowers. I thought about you. Or you know I know you're gonna say something different. I think it is overused, though. I do think the phrase is overused, but I think it's because people are really trying to understand the differences between the two.
So I gave it a 3 because I think the term is overused and poorly understood. I also think that I've seen love bombing misapplied too many times
Yeah.
for exactly what you said. Because you are extremely deprived of love and what that looks like, when someone gives you a little bit more, gives you what maybe someone with my nervous system, in my experience, would think is like, this is courtship. And then when that doesn't work out, now you've labeled it a love bomb, and it wasn't love bomb, right? So I find I have to explain pretty often that it's not a love bomb if after there's no devaluation and discardment. So if
Yeah.
it's just courtship and then at some point it doesn't pan out and then that courtship goes away, that's just courtship. Love bombing is a tactic that sets us up for abuse. If the abuse didn't follow it, was it a love bomb or was it just like, oh,
It's so strategic. And like when people are so used to dealing with people who are emotionally unavailable,
Mhm.
they do feel like, oh, someone who is present, like you want something out of me, versus they just want connection.
Yeah, so I give it a 3 because I think it is used with not enough information, and I think it's used pretty inappropriately. Yeah, that's why I give it. It's kind of like uh narcissists are absolutely running out there, but the types of narcissists that are love bombing people in the beginning, like the way that we really understand love bombing, that is not happening at the levels that we think is happening. I'm hearing about a lot of cheap people who don't want to plan dates and barely catch your back. So I'm like, everybody is not being love bombed. Overwhelmingly, people are being stingy, crumbs. They're being breadcrumbed way more than they're being love bombed. So that's why I'm like, I give it a low because we're not all getting love bombs.
Okay, got you. All right, so the last one on this list is trauma bond. trauma bond.
Yeah.
Ready?
Mhm.
Go. People don't realize what trauma bond is. They think, oh, because they've experienced shared trauma, that's what it is. It's not. It's overused. Literally, if the relationship is forming and abuse is present, like one person is actively being abused, not just one person, but people are actually being abused
Mhm.
as the relationship is forming, that is a trauma bond.
Mhm.
Not because
Mhm.
both of you guys have similar childhoods or past relationships where you're scarred, or that's not it. So that's why I gave it a 1, like overused and misunderstood.
So, I gave it a 3 for similar reasons.
Mhm.
When there is an actual trauma bond that has happened, it's powerful to understand the language behind it and what is happening and why you're experiencing the overwhelming feelings that you're experiencing, the delirium and all the things when the relationship ends and the cycle. And wonderful. But it is highly misused. I also think that sometimes
Yeah.
people say, like, we have a trauma bond, and it's almost like this mystical thing that they can never get rid of. And what is not being talked about is a person's codependency, right? Which I'd rather explore into rather than, right, the bond, the connection, like that people
It's like
sometimes,
a sense of pride. I'm like,
yeah,
baby,
sometimes people romanticize the term
romanticize.
trauma
It's
bond.
like
Or they use it to justify a lack of boundaries and a lack of accepting
in
the.
action.
So that's why I gave it low, because I'm like, we be using this word, and one, we be using it wrong, but two, also it's one of these blanket statements that unfortunately can cover a lot of behaviors that need to be challenged.
Absolutely. This is great.
Yes.
I mean, obviously having a conversation with you is just amazing, but it's really edifying. And I really liked being able to kind of flush out why
Mhm.
we rated. So yeah, I mean, I think this was phenomenal.
Yes, this was so fun. I'm glad we did this. Love hearing all of your thoughts as always. So insightful. I love how we are always, I feel like I'm a little sweeter in my ranking. Like every time I'm like,
Yeah,
but that's just kind of my nature. I think it's from being a dating coach, because people always like, get rid of him, get rid of him. Like, let's see what we can do.
let's
Um,
see what we do. Let's work it
let's
out.
see what we
But
can
no.
do. But I love that
Um,
we were so in sync with how we see these concepts, and we're really able to flesh them out. So this is a great conversation. Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on,
Thank you.
for having
It's
me.
amazing, great conversation. And I can't wait for us to have some more videos together. And you know what, honestly and truly, if anyone is watching this video and y'all really want more topics, or you have more questions, drop them in the comments, because we just gonna answer them.
That
We be
part. Yes. I would love to hear any other terms that you think we missed, or terms that you think, oh, you all need to cover this. Drop them in the
or
comments.
even if they
Like,
agree or don't agree. Like, I
yes.
want to know how y'all would have rated it.
Let us know, and definitely like, subscribe, and follow both of us. You can find me at The Gathered Life on Instagram, on TikTok, at all the places, The Gathered Life, Bree Jenkins. And where can we find you?
You can find me all on the socials, Beverly Andre, Beverly with an Ley. Please don't forget that extra E. My mama is fancy. But yes, please follow us, engage with us. We want to hear from y'all. And yeah, until next time.